Hello, everyone. Welcome to FIBO USA's webinar, Reopening Strategies, Sustainability in the Face of Uncertainty. My name is Maike Kumstel, Industry Relations and Content Manager for FIBO USA, and I am moderating today's presentation. But first, a few housekeeping notes. I want to let you know that we are recording today's webinar, and the link will be sent to you tomorrow. If you are having difficulty hearing us today and are listening through your computer, please check that your speaker volume is turned up or message us using the chat box located on the right side of your screen. Feel free to ask questions through the same chat box. We will review throughout the presentation and have designated time for Q&A towards the end of the webinar. And now I would like to introduce our speaker today, Jason Stowell. Jason Stowell is a 25-year veteran of the fitness industry. Over his career, Jason has worked in a great many roles that include personal training, membership sales, and general manager. Currently, Jason serves as a professional consultant to the JCCs of North America and is the new host of the fitness business podcast, Industry Trends Show. And now, Jason, take it away.
Thank you so very much. All right, thank you, everybody. It's an honor to be here. As was highlighted earlier, I've been in the industry since 1996. I don't tell this part of the story very often, but I actually started as a janitor right out of high school. And then as I was going to school to become a high school history teacher, I happened to start personal training with a couple of gentlemen, and I gained a whole bunch of muscle and just started feeling really strong about it, and decided to get my ACE certification. And then after I finished school, I just decided I'm going to give this fitness thing a try, and I stuck with it. I spent 17 years on the for-profit side. I spent the last 8 now on the nonprofit side, consulting the JCCs of North America, as well as I'm going to start hosting this new show specifically on industry trends. So now we're talking about industry trends. I was always one of those people, as I would imagine most of you are here, that looked at being a data-driven decision maker. So I'd get the ERSA reports every year. I'd look at what we should be looking ahead for in 2020. And of course, with the once in a 100-year event, all plans kind of came grinding to a halt. Most of us were really aware that we could be doing an online digital content, but most of us didn't even have meetings set up to have meetings with our staff from at home. So we rapidly innovated as an industry, and most of us have gotten online and now are engaging with our clients in some way. The challenge now is as we begin to see reopening strategies emerge, we are faced with the great possibility that we may have more closures. For example, in America right now, in the US, there's last stat I have here is 1.56 million people have been infected. Maryland reported yesterday their highest one-day total. So every state as of today is now in some version of a reopened state, reopened strategy, and cases are still increasing. So we may have to weather this stay-at-home order almost seasonally. So business owners have had this shift from enriching lives to sustaining livelihoods. And so what I'm here to talk about today is what consensus is there out there right now from the major industry players that we can learn from? What are we seeing out there as far as feedback from consumer reports, member surveys about how members are feeling about these reopened facilities? And we're going to talk a little bit about what you could insert, what plans you should create now so that you can weather the uncertainty of tomorrow. And so I'm going to share my screen slow here. All right. All right, so we're going to talk about three major buckets here. All right, there we go. So again, we're going to talk about industry developments. Is there consensus that we should be considering? Are there major observations that our members are feeling? We're going to do a little bit about strategy review, What are you implementing right now? What should you be considering? We'll talk a little bit about your digital presence, and then we're going to talk a lot about durability and how can we prepare for the uncertainty of tomorrow's potential disruptors. So before we go into that, let's talk about what we were doing prior to the pandemic, right? There's this really great book called The Innovator's Dilemma. Essentially what it was is that the players on top rarely are interested in disrupting their own business. So what they'll do is they'll just stay doing what they do best, and then somebody comes along and disrupts their business and they fall off. Very rarely does the top business in any specific category stay there for very long, solely because they want to protect their major revenue streams. You know, one of the biggest concepts of that was Blockbuster and Netflix. Blockbuster had an opportunity to buy Netflix, and of course they did not, and we all know how that story ended now, right? So the innovator's dilemma was kind of an idea of how to insert a process to evaluate what we're doing versus what we should be doing. And so there's this really interesting exercise I used to do with businesses when I would consult. Now, real quick note here, any slide that you see with a gold star on it simply means that there's an actionable on that slide, a recommendation that you should be considering, in my opinion. So something worthy of note at the very least. So there's this exercise, innovation exercise called Kill the Company. The reason this matters is because culture trends to be complacent because CEOs nowadays are kind of kings, right? People are afraid to speak up because they don't want to lose their jobs. There's something called mitigated speech, and it came to fruition as a concept from the airline industry, because what we found, or what they found, was that the pilot generally wouldn't take advice from the co-pilot, and the co-pilot was afraid to speak up. So they would say, hey, I think we might be flying too low, as opposed to, hey, we're flying too low. So the airline industry actually inserted a process where you could no longer mitigate your speech. You have to speak very clearly. If you have a concern, you have to state the concern in a very clear way. So the Kill the Company exercise is kind of the same thing. It gives the CEO and it gives the employees the permission to basically speak up and talk about all the opportunities you're missing or the things that could potentially come in and disrupt your practice, right? So this Kill the Company exercise is broken into 4 quadrants, right? High likelihood, low impact, high likelihood, high impact, low likelihood, low impact, and low likelihood, high impact. So then what you do is you have your team go out, you give them 30 minutes to kind of come up with all the ideas that could possibly disrupt your business, and then you bring them back in and you categorize these ideas. What you'll see is a map of things that could possibly happen and whether they would disrupt you, because you want to disrupt yourself prior to making sure is my slide still up there? There we go. Okay. Sorry, everybody, technical difficulties. All right, so for example, you might come up with the idea that there should be a hybrid yoga CrossFit class, for example. All right, just making sure everyone sees my screen there. I apologize. All right, hybrid yoga CrossFit classes, right? Maybe this is something that people would be incredibly interested in. However, if a competitor were coming to the business and start doing that, would it disrupt your business? Probably not. And are people really interested in a hybrid yoga CrossFit class? Probably not, right? So it'd be a low likelihood, low impact. Virtual reality is kind of storming the industry right now. So if Group X class went to this virtual experience, would it be something that could potentially disrupt your business? Potentially it could, right? But the barrier to entry and the cost to entry would be so high that it's probably not likely to disrupt your business. However, if you are, for example, I work with the nonprofits, if you work with older adults, what you'll see is a lot of post-rehabilitation clients looking for what we call next steps, right? So phase 1 physical therapy is I'm injured, surgery, I'm in the hospital. Phase 2 would be going to physical therapy. Phase 4 is I'm back to running a mile in the time I was doing it prior. But phase 3 had a gap in the industry where somebody could come in and bring educated, certified experts and work with chiropractors, work with physical therapists in the industry to basically insert a next step, if you will. So we work with the physical therapists, we take their scripts, and we try to work from them. Physical therapists just want you to be able to get to the top of the steps. A personal trainer wants you to be able to get to the top of the steps and not be winded, right? So that was a disruptive kind of program that somebody came in. They could potentially take a lot of our older clients away from us. And so we decided that we were going to implement that ourselves, right? So this is a great practice exercise for you to do with your staff to allow them, to permit them to give you open, honest feedback on how they could better the company. So I want to give everybody a real quick warning here. Reopen strategies across the nation will vary greatly. There certainly is consensus from the CDC, but once you get down to your local level, your state level, it varies greatly. So some of the recommendations I'm going to give you may very well be sound, but you're going to want to vet this through your risk management group prior to implementing anything that we're going to talk about here today. One key note I want to give here, everybody, is when you're measuring capacity, that includes your staff. So if you plan on, for example, in Pennsylvania, you plan on having your cardio area open to members and you have 2 employees in the area, then your capacity is now 23 members. So everyone seems to miss that, so please keep that on your radar. All right, so let's talk about some present and recent developments around the industry right now. Again, is there any consensus? Is there anything that we're looking at as an industry that we should be implementing if we're not? What are the members feeling? And what about some additional information? So let's start here. All right, reports predict consumer behavior in the post-19 world, right? Here's what we've seen during the closure. 58% of consumers say they are really impressed with the brands that are providing services right now. So if you're a facility or you know of a facility that completely went dark because they're afraid of weathering the massive refund requests right now, cancellation requests, they're going to have a heck of a time once they reopen because the lack of communication has been an agitator to this group. 55% say they value the brands that really are trying to help them at home, and 50% say they really, really appreciate engagement. So communication, social media, emails, even phone calls. The reverse is actually kind of interesting. The facilities out there trying to make light of the situation or adding humor or comic relief on social media have absolutely turned people off. It's really hurt the brand. So this is a serious nature. People are at home, challenged, and they do not appreciate people trying to make light of the situation, and they certainly want to be communicated with. So you need to increase your strategy. And we call this engage, assure, and support as far as the strategy goes. You should be engaging your members. You should be assuring them that you're doing everything to make sure that their safety is your top priority, and you're there to support them at home. We're supporting you through digital online content. We're supporting you through licensing or leasing our equipment while we're closed, right? So you should be engaging, assuring, and supporting your staff, which is a consensus around best practices. So morningconsult.com recently did, this was just last week, a kind of a survey of members. It was over 500 members. And what they found was that only 25%, 24% of people feel safe to come back to the gym. And that's actually bearing out in what we're seeing on the ground. Most facilities are seeing 30 to 50% of their members come back in this first reopening wave. And the reason is threefold. Those who are elderly, older adults, those who are at risk, have some type of chronic health disease, which 40% of America has at least one, 60% have at least one, 40% have at least two chronic issues. And those are just wary. They don't want to be part of that first wave in case there's spikes in infection rates. So they're going to stay home and they're going to take a cautious approach. 43% say they really miss going to the gym, right? But only 24% said they're going to go back to the gym. Later on, we're going to look at a stat that shows that 85% of the people right now have decided that they're going to continue working at home in some capacity, even after the world continues to spin exactly as it is. Some of the safety measures, again, from the morning consult that they put out there, which was really interesting. 72% want to see disinfectant wipes available to them. They obviously trust your assurances and having your staff, but they really want to own it themselves. So they want the ability to clean equipment themselves. So make sure you have disinfectant wipes there. 60% of your members said they do want smaller group classes. Group X is one of the areas that potentially may not be coming back to full capacity in any near-term scenario. And our members really do want to see social distancing enforced inside of Group X classes. And then 12% of our members are very, very turned off by the idea of having their temperature checked at the check-in process. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, the member journey, in a moment here. But just so you're aware, everybody is going to be a little bit turned off because of the new friction that happens entering the building. So ABC Financial, who represents 40% of the billing in our industry, put out an interesting stat 2 weeks ago that basically said if we were to reopen in full right now, we should all expect to see about a 23 to 28% drop in our membership dues as people move to online offerings. If this goes on into June, we could potentially be weathering a 38% drop. So one of the things that they're looking at is how do we assure people that you want to come back to the facility, right? So here's a list of some of the offerings that various players are doing. And at the bottom here, I have industry consensus. So everyone's kind of going to a contactless check-in with scanned thermal checks. There's a zero tolerance policy around any kind of fever. Even if a member walked to your facility in 100-degree weather and they're sweating and they say, can you check my temperature in 15 minutes? The answer is no. It's a 0% tolerance policy. Almost everybody has gone to some version of assumption of risks, code of conduct on a daily basis so that your members and your staff will sign off on this waiver saying that they understand the risks coming into their facility. Whether we'll keep implementing that as a daily strategy or whether that'll just become part of their member agreement is yet to be seen, but again, it's happening daily right now. For the most part, no one is using water fountains. There's no towel service, and they've inserted plexiglass at the high contact points. I'm sure you've seen it when you go to your grocery stores or your drug stores, that there's now plexiglass between you and the reception or the attendant, and that's happening now on a larger scale at the fitness level as well. So social fitnessing is kind of the branding term that they're using as far as how to lay out the facility. This may be, again, something that we're going to deal with for quite a long time. So I advise my my advisees that you shouldn't just be putting X's on the ground to mark where they should be exercising it. You should be designing distancing by basically making them workout pods, right? This is your operating area. This is your safe area so that we can ensure, or as best we can ensure, that we're keeping safety as a top priority. So instead of putting X's where you expect them to stand, even better would be to tape off the space, a 6 foot by 6 foot box or 10 foot, however you want to do it, that they're going to operate within. You're even going to give them, as you see in picture 2, dedicated equipment if you can. So personal training, all the ways that these facilities are adapting is they're having dedicated stations with dumbbells from X to Y, barbells, and its dedicated bench. And at the end of each session, it's completely wiped down prior to the next client coming in. These are, again, the expectations that our members are demanding right now, is that safety is. So again, if you're doing X marks this box, I definitely recommend you get away from that. All right, so some industry observations. I'm going to give you 5 observations from those clubs that have reopened and what we're getting as feedback we need to consider. One is with locker rooms shutting down for the most part, other than the bathroom facilities, gym bags. A lot of facilities opened, didn't have a plan for what to do with members' keys and gym bags, and so the members are now taking their gym bags onto the floor, which has always been kind of a hit or miss piece, whether we were comfortable with that, because who knows what they have in their gym bag. So if you don't have a strategy right now for handling gym bags, it's something worth having on your radar. Increased volume of calls in the first week. So what we recommend is that you have a dedicated call center in at least the first week, if not the first 2 weeks, because you're going to get everything from, are you open? Can I schedule? I need refunds, freezes, cancels, and most staff will be wearing masks. And as I'm sure you're all aware now, trying to talk on the phone through a mask is fairly challenging. Even more so is you're going to have a lot of members coming into the office wanting to speak with a membership consultant about their membership dues and their freezes, and it's very disruptive. So we recommend that you set aside a week or two to have a dedicated call center just to handle the increased volume of inquiry calls. Staff shortages was number 2. With staff shortages, what we're seeing is that members want to come back to the facility, but sometimes our staff, especially Group X staff, is not feeling safe yet. So we've done a pretty good job of communicating to our members what we've done to make them feel safe in our gym. We have not done as good a job really educating our staff on what we're implementing to make them feel safe as well. So before you reopen, or if you're currently in a reopened state, make sure that you're communicating with your employees at what they should expect when they first come into the facility. The other 3 pieces here are masks. Members, we're always worried what people are going to want to wear masks when they're doing cardio, because it's going to be somewhat uncomfortable, but they are doing it. They are bringing their own masks. They are very turned off if you don't have a policy that members have to wear masks and they see members not wearing masks, they get very turned off by that. We're actually seeing some members bring their own cleaning sprays with them, which is interesting. Instead of using our disinfectants, they're using their disinfectants, which is kind of a fascinating issue. You're going to have to make some decisions on how you want to handle that. As we said earlier, attendance is pretty low right now. 30 to 50% is kind of what we're at, as those that are cautious still weather the storm at home. So again, let's talk about some consensus in the strategy review. Let me go back to that real quick. All right. So these are, again, consensus. You need to have deep cleans protocols. You need to have EPA compliant disinfectants, self-cleaning stations for your members, which they're demanding it, checklists for your staff to ensure that they're doing things on the hour, on the day, monthly, weekly, however you want to do it. Social distancing by design, we talked about that as well. When people come in, they expect to see every other treadmill turned off. They expect to see a different flow as far as how they get into the club and how they exit the club. They expect to see additional signage that reinforces our protocols and procedures. And then you want to make sure you're implementing some kind of staff training for what the enhanced check-in process is, what their cleaning responsibilities are. And one piece that doesn't go as addressed as often is sales and scripting. You're going to get a lot of common questions throughout. For example, is this disinfectant EPA compliant? And you want your staff to repeat the exact same answer every time so that you can satisfy the question once, right? So you want to make sure that you're creating scripts for your staff as well. Make sure you map the new member journey. Again, you're probably inserting some type of process for member flow, how they're going to get into the facility, how they're going to leave the facility, what the workout pods operating area is going to be, what the enhanced check-in process is. Will they sign a waiver? Will you check their temperature? Are you going to take their card now? Or are they going to swipe it on their own? So it's really smart to kind of provide your members with a map of what they should expect. And we're going to talk about that here pretty quickly here. As far as messaging assurances go, these are musts for building trust with your membership. You should have created a dedicated reopening page that houses a very comprehensive guide to how your center is prioritizing safety. You need to build trust. We recommend that you also bring in dedicated welcome staff your entry, your access control is going to add friction, and it's going to be a much more abrasive environment. You want to have another person there that's basically going to be your ambassador to talk about, let me show you around the facility, let me help you get comfortable, how can we tour you around the facility so that you feel welcome. We talked a little bit about the zero tolerance policies. Temperature checks, right? No tolerance. If they have any type of temperature over 100.4, I believe, or 100.2, I believe the CDC said, they are just not allowed in for the facility for the day. No ifs, ands, or busts. You mean you have your signage, and you need to have dedicated cleaning staff. Now, I'm sure everyone here knows that we have floor staff that we often find watching TV or just chatting to a member for 20 minutes. Right now, that is not something that we can tolerate. We have to insert tight controls to make sure that these people are easy to identify and are cleaning at all times. So these 5 things need to be, or should say, are consensuses around the industry, and you should be considering. This Facebook Live strategy is actually pretty fascinating. Members don't know what to expect in the new today, right? They don't know what your gym's going to look like. They don't know if they're going to feel safe or not. And so what a lot of facilities are doing out there right now is they're doing these Facebook Live video events to kind of bring members up to date. So 14 days out, and this is just a sample, of course, 14 days out, we're going to take you on a tour of the new layout, right? And they'll have them follow around. They'll go through the approved areas, right? The pool is going to be open. Here's the pool. They'll bring up the fact that maybe the towel service won't be in, so bring a towel with you, but kind of give them an idea of what they should expect when they get there. 10 days out, they're going to tune in, and you're going to really demonstrate what deep clean looks like. Again, you're building trust. You're showing them exactly what deep cleaning is and how you're going to ensure that member safety is your top priority. 7 days out, you go into this, the countdown begins, you just kind of like excitement, right? Day 4, you're going to model your what you should expect at check-in. So again, if you're going to have a contactless check-in, if you're going to have plexiglass up, you're going to be checking temperatures. That's where you want to do that. If you're going to insert some type of capacity, generally in your facility, you're going to have a sign-in sheet that you're going to use, whether it's through MindBody or Google Docs, however you're going to do it. But 2 days out, you're going to remind them that they need to check in. They can't just show up if that's the place. And then 1 day out, you're just saying, we're excited, right? So video is very engaging. You want to start utilizing that prior to your open to kind of build trust, assurances, but also build excitement. All right, so again, this is my tip for your reopen strategy that we're not seeing generally bought in right now. We're all working so hard on building assurances and trust. Your cleaning protocols, your safety protocols will build trust with your members, but your programming around jump starts, because everyone's been at home for almost 2 months at this point, is what's going to drive interest, and it's going to drive traffic. So we're seeing 30 to 50% because they're still leery of what they want to do, but also they're not sure if they want to go back and do the same thing. So Beachbody does 21, 60, 90-day programs, right? It's a $1 billion, just recently got over $1 billion industry, and you should be also offering jumpstart programs as well. There's something that I've written about before called the fresh start effect. We use it in personal training a lot. You know, you always say fresh starts happen on Mondays or after birthdays or major life events like divorce, right? So for example, on Friday, or excuse me, on Sunday, you might say, man, I drank too much this week. Old me is not going to drink this much anymore. On Monday, I'm starting my new program. I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week, and I'm going to take advantage of it, right? So your jumpstart programs should be post-pandemic related, saying, let's jumpstart your program. We know you've been at home. We have a 4-week, 6-week, 12-week, however you want to do it, program list that's going to help jumpstart them back into fitness. And it needs to be a dedicated program specifically to, let's get you back off the couch and start again. We're here to assist you, right? So don't just message assurances, message what you're doing programmatically to help people regain their strength. So let's talk a little bit about the durability of the situation. Reports are saying that this very well, if we don't have a vaccine that just shows up, could be something that we're gonna weather for close to 2 years. Again, we know 1.5 million in the US are infected right now. We know that we're over 92,000 who have passed away, unfortunately, and it is quite possible that we're going to weather more disruption and more closures as these cases begin to spike. Who knows, maybe as soon as a few weeks from now. So when we're talking about durability, there's a couple things you need to consider. As I mentioned earlier, 85% of our people plan to stay at home and work on some capacity. Peloton's stock is up 66%. Well, Peloton sells a $2,000 bike. So people who recently purchased a $2,000 bike are less likely to come back to your facility because they've just made this major investment working at home. So even if they do come back, they're going to still demand some type of content at home, and that's what we're going to talk about providing here. So let's talk about some trends in digital adoption. Interesting what we're kind of seeing out there right now. And these stats are from February 15th, March 15th, compared to the 16th through April, right? So kind of pre-closure, post-closure, right? You know, subscribers to IntelliVideo's subscription-based content is up 255%. Your on-demand shopping traffic is up by 565%. Streaming of classes is up 849%. You know, now a lot of that's because there's no other options, but again, it's an enormous jump. And then subscribers to monthly content is up well over 2,000%. So people are looking for solutions at home. And if anyone's familiar with the tipping point, or Malcolm Gladwell spoke about, is that the hardest part of getting a new trend or innovation to take hold is getting 20% of the people to adopt to it. And the hardest part of that is really educating the consumer. Well, what this pandemic has done is basically educate our consumer how they can do this from at home. And so what we're going to see now is this tipping point where we're already heading this direction anyways, with Peloton and Beachbody growing tremendously pre-pandemic, and now they're growing exponentially post-pandemic, that they're going to demand digital content, and we should be delivering that as well. So innovation and resilience. I'm going to caution everybody that if you believe that you're going to offer online classes now while we're closed, but once we reopen, we're going to go back to just doing our group classes in-house, our personal training in-house, you're going to be in trouble. Innovation rarely goes backwards. So your members are going to want to be in your facility, but they're also going to want to access content at home. And if you're not delivering it, they're going to find somebody else that's going to deliver it. Interestingly enough, most of the big players realize that offering free classes in perpetuity while paying staff is not a sustainable business model. So the vast majority over the next 30 to 90 days are going to be inserting some pay model, if they have not already, between the virtual content and their own content. There's two ways of doing that. You can either include it in your top tier membership package, or you can provide it as a standalone package. Quick fact there, the average online subscription right now for this type of content is $9.99. I actually do recommend that you consider the add-on for the $10 as opposed to adding in your top tier membership. And the reason is that we reclose again and you have to freeze billing. By having it as inclusive, when they lose services, you're going to have trouble trying to bill them for that online content because the value proposition is lower. By adding it as an add-on that you could even discount the free at sign up, if we reclose, it allows you to still bill members at least some revenue during the closed state. Right now, a lot of us are doing it for free and generating nothing. So again, if you're doing free online digital content, you need to move to a paid model, even if it's only $10 a month in the near future. Optimize your digital presence. Having a website used to be the end all be all. You just had to be online. You had to have social media. We post something once a week, something fun or interesting. But now it's a demand that the ease of use is similar to Amazon. You know, go back 6 months ago. Your options for working out used to be within a 5-mile radius, right? Now that people have adopted online content, really the access to the internet is vast, and they could take any class from anyone who's doing it. I could go to a class in Singapore if I wanted to, digitally, virtually. So your platform has to be very easy and has to load quickly. And actually, I have some really interesting stats you need to do. This is a very important piece here. Researchers, 81% of people research a business before they ever walk through the door. So before they ever talk to your salesperson, 81%, this is a mix of Amazon and Google stats, by the way, 81% will research you beforehand, before they ever pick up the phone. 93% of those people are still searching via search engine like Yahoo or Google. So we've all mobilized to get engaging on social media, which is great for meeting our members where they're at. But new members, people interested, prospective members interested in your content, they are still searching Google and Yahoo. And for the most part, they want to digest 3 to 5 pieces of content before they ever actually decide to, again, pick up the phone and call you or send you an email. So you need to be putting out content, engaging content consistently, because if you're not easy to find, your website doesn't load quickly, and you're not putting out a robust amount of content, they're moving on to the next prospective facility down the road. This is one I found most fascinating. 88% of consumers trust anonymous online reviews. So when you go to Amazon and something has 10,000 5-star reviews, they are taking that as this thing must be the most amazing thing possible. So you need to be cultivating customer testimonials, social shares from your facility. You should be reaching out to your members and asking them to put recommendations on pages like Yelp, because they are highly influential and very important to your business. And this is the one that's, again, can't be understated on. Load time of your web page is critically important. Studies are showing that if your page takes longer than 2 seconds to load, you're losing about 40% of the prospective members before they ever call you. And it drops 7 to 12% within every second after that, right? So if your page is taking longer than 5 seconds to load, then you're going to be in trouble. There is a lot of, going back to this one, this GT metrics, there are a lot of websites out there that you can look up. There's one called Pingdom that will, you just type in your company's website into it, and it'll run this unbelievable data crunch of how long your page took to load, what's lagging it, what you can change, and kind of give you an idea of where you're at. If your score is anywhere from a C or lower, you need to make some changes, because loyalty only lasts so long. And if they can't access your content quickly and easily, they will be looking for somebody else who can. All right, business continuity plan. Again, another very important piece here. We've all worked very, very hard on how do we get a major strategy plan for opening with the assurances and with the program and with the staffing, with the training. But do you have a plan for what happens if you have to shut the doors again 2 weeks from now? Right? What does the job descriptions look like for the employees? Are you keeping your employees? Right now, your staff may be doing classes virtually. How's their camera? Is it up to snuff? How's their microphone? Should you be buying these things ahead of time, so if you get wind 24 hours ahead of time that you're going to close, you can call in your 5 instructors and say, take this home, set it up. We're going back to a virtual content piece. You need to figure out exactly what you're going to prioritize. Those things that generate revenue in a closed state will absolutely be of critical importance. And then you're going to have a plan that basically says, this is how long I can last in plan A. Maybe I can keep my members, keep your employees on for 20 to 30 hours a week as opposed to the 40 that you could. And then after 3 months, maybe we have to reduce them to 10, or maybe we have to lay them off. Again, you should be planning for this now, because the very real possibility that we'll be reclosing in the near future. Virtual business strategies, right? Social media, challenges, classes, virtual training. A lot of us are doing this already. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But this is another piece that a lot of facilities are not looking at with their continuity plans, is their workforce. Again, we do not expect this cases to drop. Matter of fact, as we go into a reopening state, Maryland again posting the highest one-day total yesterday, we expect to see cases increase even with the social distancing and all that put into place. So what is your sick policy going to be? Your sick leave, right? What happens if staff get sick? What happens if staff have to go home to take care of a sick elderly parent, right? So your staff may be back, but God forbid something else happens. So you should be cross-training employees right now who perform essential functions to be able to sustain business if that one person leaves. So on a sheet of paper, if you could name 2 or 3 people that if they were to all of a sudden disappear and you have to hard stop any specific part of your business, you need to start cross-training people to pick up the pieces while you're having additional sick leave. We're gonna talk about differentiation here real quick in programming. Again, like I said before, it used to be your competitors were within 5 miles. Now your competitors are gonna be the internet, right? So as we reopen, some people have really enjoyed what they have online right now. They might use you, but fitness was already becoming kind of a portfolio approach, right? You have your watch for your steps, you had your phone for your counting your calories, you had your big box gym for your treadmill, you had your boutique for your very specialty interest. So people are going to keep working out online. Are they going to keep working out online with you? Or are they going to go to Beachbody to supplement the treadmill they have in your facility, right? So a couple pieces here is just make sure you're being authentic. Make sure that you're being creative in the content you're putting out. Make sure you're personal and make sure you're consistent, right? So authentic just means that you're having very real conversations. If you're in your house and it's not a perfect place to be and your dogs are barking or something like that, people actually enjoy that. People want to know that you're struggling just as much as they are. We're not faking it. Creative, you do a goofy plank challenge. We did a Zumbathon. The JCC Association did a Zumbathon that had almost 1,000 people participating in this group event. So be creative, be personal. Again, talk to them, be real. Don't just be this mechanical voice. Everyone's uncomfortable doing this new webinar presence here. You'll get used to it. Experience builds confidence, and then just be consistent. It's not going to be an overnight success for getting your content online. So you want to make sure that you're delivering your content daily, whether that's classes, websites, social shares, however you want to do it, but just make sure you're putting out something daily. Online engagement strategy. This is one of the big tips I want to share with everybody too. If you're not aware of Eventbrite online events or any kind of online event platforms, you should be. So right now we were offering free classes to the community on Sunday. So for example, if you weren't a member of our facility, but you want to come take our outdoor boot camp class, you could absolutely do that by just showing up. You can do the same thing digitally, right? So you could post it on Monday evenings. You're going to do a group power class that's going to be free to anyone from online that wants to take it. And all they have to do is register through Eventbrite. And the reason you want to use Eventbrite as opposed to Facebook Live is even if it's free, there's still a ticketing system in there. You're still generating leads. You're still capturing data. So if you get 1,000 people into your Monday night Group X digital class, that's 1,000 people that you can follow up with to see if they're interested in signing on for either a in-person full membership or just a virtual membership. Second part here is you want to have a mix of live and library of content. If you're not taping your programs and you're not delivering them as a structured series, they completely lose all value after they happen, right? So if Monday Group X class, it happens every Monday and you do it for 52 weeks, the 53rd week, when you get a new member on, they don't want to go back to the old content. That's old live classes, right? But if you, for example, P90X, which came out in 2005, P90X still is a major revenue driver for Beachbody because it's a package series that tackles people in the solution. So they say, oh, I want to do the solution, and they're still engaging in that content even though it's 15 years old at this point. Social shares and virtual guest passes, make sure you're asking your members to invite friends to your virtual events, absolutely free. And you should be doing a one-on-one and small group training right now as paid content. Another interesting piece here, the big debate in the industry, do we charge more for personal training online? Do we charge less for personal training online? The bad news is there's really no consensus. The charge more people say that it's more convenient. They don't have to come to the gym. They don't have to worry about cleaning all the trust and safety issues. So you can charge more. The negative or the naysayers are saying you need to charge less because they're getting less of an experience. They don't have the robust equipment. So there's really no consensus yet. For what we're doing is we're charging the same, and then we're going to make some measurements and review, revise, and then pivot with the findings. As far as programs go too, some data is showing that there's a shift right now from fitness as an outcome-based, a single goal-based piece to more of this familiar, holistic piece right now. So yoga talks a lot about going from a state of doing to a state of being, and what we're seeing now is that kind of approach happening throughout social groups. You're seeing a lot more partner training right now. You're seeing a lot of families, a lot of people who are interested in buying and paying for memberships for mom and dad because they don't want them to fall ill and increase their health risks, right? So what we're seeing is kind of a physical, a social, kind of an emotional piece here. We're talking about holistic programming now, right? So you shouldn't simply have personal training programs. You should insert specialty classes. So for example, couples conditioning, right? A class designed for 2 people, scripted for 2 people, because people want to do this together. You know, one of the things that we don't talk about, and we're not going to talk about here, is kind of the mental health issue of all this. People miss connection and community. They're leery, they're scared to get back. They don't know what to expect as far as this pandemic goes, but they absolutely miss connection. So how you can, even though you're not gonna be able to bring everybody in for a high five at the end of the class, can you build a social construct to make sure that people still feel a sense of connection and community, even if it's virtually? And that's it. The last piece here is let's just connect. I love talking shop. I'm a big nerd for the industry myself. So if you have any interest in reaching out, asking any questions, I'm absolutely interested in networking with people, especially on LinkedIn. We're always growing, we're always learning. Again, anyone who tells you they know exactly what they should be doing right now is either making that up or just doesn't know any better. So with that, I'm going to throw it back over to Mikey.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jason. Very informative, very actionable, awesome presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So yeah, now is the time to send us some questions through the chat box if you haven't done so already. Let me just quickly see if there's anything coming in. I have one question for you, Jason. So you mentioned that you believe virtual classes are here to stay even after we reopen. So how do you recommend we can do both effectively?
Right. So right now, a great question. Whoever threw that out, by the way. Right now, what's happening is your instructor's probably at home. They're using their webcam and they're delivering their class. Once we get to a reopen state, even if our class has reduced capacity, your instructors can be delivering the classes inside of the facility. It's just as easy to install a camera in the facility so that you're broadcasting the classes through some kind of paywall at home. So if you can't make it to the 6 p.m. group fight class that's happening in the facility, or because of the new reduced capacities, it's gone from a room of 30 people to a room of 12 people, and you missed getting in time, you can still take it from home, which again, people are adopting right now anyways. So I missed my chance, but by installing the camera and the internet in the room, you can still broadcast it live so people can take it so they don't feel like they're completely missing out. So that's how you would do both. And again, you want to have a mix of live content and a library of content. So if you're going to launch a 4-week post-pandemic Get Your Body Back Jumpstart program, you're going to want to tape those, record those, and then put them into a solution later on so that members can access your 4-week video library of how to jumpstart your workout program again. Hope that answers the question.
There's a second one. Can you recommend any programs or formats that fit into what you call the post-pandemic holistic approach?
Yeah, so again, people are looking for connection and community. It's been challenging to do it virtually, but we've all rapidly innovated and headed that direction. So I threw out the example, but to add a little more meat to it, couples conditioning. So when I was a personal trainer, what I would do is I'd advertise that, are you 6 months out from your wedding? Let's get you in the best shape of your life. So I do a half-hour session for him, half-hour session for her, and I do a 1-hour session where I brought them together, and we would just laugh and joke about, you know, are you inviting crazy Uncle Harry? Is it going to be an open bar? Are you going to do line dances and stuff like that, right? So I created this kind of this connection, this community between the group there. Other ideas, for example, would be fitness foundations. You know, we launched this group class where, you know, it's an 8-week program. You're going to try TRX one week, you're going to try kettlebells the next week, and so on and so forth, with the idea that people would get a taste of everything they enjoyed, and then they would graduate on to some type of other programming that makes sense to them. And what we found was everyone just wanted to stay in fitness foundations. They just enjoyed the connection they made in that group, right? So come up with branded programming around solutions to drive engagement. So a fitness foundation class, again, a couples conditioning class. Those are the kind of things that create community and connection.
Awesome. I have another one for you. How do you see the approach to personal training taking place in the first phase, if at all other than virtual?
So this is, again, I'm going to advocate for what I believe, and you're going to have to check to see whether this is kosher in your state, local guidance. I believe that if you're going to do in-house personal training, you're going to have to create dedicated workout pods. So this personal trainer and this client will work within this 12-foot by 12-foot area, and this will be their dedicated bench, their dedicated barbell, their dedicated mat that will all be deep cleaned after every piece. I think that's the only way it's going to. You have to go to a no-touch policy, which as a personal trainer, you shouldn't have been really guiding people this way anyways. But nevertheless, I know a lot of trainers like to kind of correct people's form, right? So you're going to want to create some tight controls about a code of conduct for your personal trainer and for your members. And you're going to want to have a dedicated pod. You're not going to want to have them just wandering the floor using whatever equipment they find, because that's a really great way to transmit disease, unfortunately.
Perfect. I think that's all. And actually, we are almost out of time. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for attending today's FIBO USA webinar. And just as a reminder, we will send out a recording of the webinar tomorrow. And yeah, thank you so much, Jason, again. And I hope we'll see everybody at FIBO USA in November 6th to the 8th in Miami Beach.
Thank you.
Thank you.